and on today's video, I am privileged and honoured to be joined by another illustrious author. It's the fantabulous Charlie Higson, who has, what, 20, 30, loads of books under his belt. Are you there, Charlie? Hello.
I am, yes. Hello there. I don't know. I mean, people do ask me how many books, and I should know. I have it at my fingertips, but I have to keep counting up. I think I have written over 20, but I can't.
You're so blasé. You've lost count.
Compared to the likes of the brilliant Jacqueline Wilson or Mallory Blackman, who've both written, I think, over 100.
I know, that's mad, isn't it?
It's crazy when you think about it.
They can't remember the finer plot points or even the plot points of all their books, surely. I struggle to remember things from like series that I've just watched on TV last year. Are you going to reach those dizzy heights, Charlie?
I know. And remind me, Connie, how many books have you written?
Yeah, that isn't a corona cough, by the way. That was anyway, moving on. Is writing the thing now, or do you just love doing a bit of everything? Because you have many feathers to your bow, strings to your bow, feathers to your cap,
and arrows in my quiver.
Yeah,
like that. Strings to my bow. That's it. Strings to my bow. Well, yes. I mean, the main thing. If people ask me what I do, I pretty much always said that I'm a writer, because I do love writing, and that's the main thing that I do. And most of the other stuff that I've done has sort of started with the writing. But I was a singer in a pop group for 6 years in the 1980s. I was a decorator. Then I got into writing and performing. I do love acting as well, and making comedy and stuff like that. So writing is kind of, I think when you're a writer, you kind of know you're a writer, because if you're not writing, you feel a bit like, yes, like, I should be writing, even when you're doing something else that you really love. And I think that's when you know, because people say, oh, I'd like to write some books. And you sort of think, if you were a writer, you probably would have started. Although, some people do start very late in life and do extremely well at it. But, I've been writing since I was about 10 years old, at least. I read books and I thought, wow, this is great. They've made up all these stories and all these characters. I'd like to have a go at that. I used to just copy them when I was a kid. I'd copy the books I liked, because what else could I write about? I didn't have much experience of the world. But I loved that sort of magic you get, where just in the days before we had computers, if kids can imagine that, you take a pen and a piece of paper, and just by making those funny squiggly marks, you just suddenly creating all this stuff that wasn't there before. Stories that haven't been told, characters that can walk around and live and breathe and make you laugh and make you cry. And that is magic.
It is, isn't it? I mean, when you say it like that, it's so bonkers, isn't it? You just put down these squiggles and you can transport people to new worlds and get inside their head and paint pictures. It's kind of unique and magnificent. So what was your first story at 10? Do you even remember? Do you have any of those nestling away in your attic?
I used to make them in little books. I'd take like a school exercise book and do it. The first thing I did was a complete rip-off of Winnie the Pooh, basically. It was about a bunch of kind of weird toys and animals that lived in the woods and had funny adventures. And I actually used to draw little drawings for them. If I'd have thought about it in advance, I could have dug it out.
So you started really young, but your first book...
The first book for adults was in 1991. I wrote some crime books for adults in the early 90s, which I cannot recommend to children at all. I love.
What about when they grow up? They are the future.
Grow up, yeah, love them. Then I was also working in TV at the time, making comedy shows, and that really took off, and that took up all my time.
Yeah.
I was writing it and producing it, and
kids won't realise that you're a legend. Far Show and all that.
When I then a few years later, I took a bit of a break from TV because I wanted to write some stuff for my own kids, and I wanted to be at home a bit more. And making television, it takes a lot of time, and you're not at home very much. So I was looking around for some stories to write, and I was approached by the people who own James Bond, and they said, "Yeah, I'd like to write some James Bond stories for younger people." And I thought, this is perfect. I love James Bond. It'd be great sort of stories for my boys. And then, the publishers said, well, this would be great because we get all that publicity. The kids will love it because you'll be Charlie Higson off the TV. And I said, they won't know me at all. They're far too young. maybe their parents would. I already had quite a lot of fans from doing the TV. Suddenly I had a whole load of new fans, of younger fans, who knew me as a writer, as the guy that did the James Bond book. So that was really nice, actually, to have that new.
That was in 2005 that you did that. So 15 years ago. Like,
I know. You know, I still think of them as these kids' book, and I imagine the people that read them. But you know, I meet these sort of big, hairy young men who say, "Yeah, I really loved your books when I was a kid," and I think, "Oh my God, I'm so old."
Yeah, I find that like the ideas just sort of come to you. Do they fly in your head, or have you ever run out of ideas?
Well, I've always been too busy to have time for writer's block. It's always like I haven't got enough time. I've got too many ideas. I've got to write this script. I've got to write this book. I've got to do this thing. And so it's precious when you get writing time. And so you get on with those ideas. And I do find often, I think the more you write, the more comfortable you get doing it. Some parts of it get easier, other parts get harder. It makes ideas brew in your mind so that they're always knocking around, and it's really just trying to organise which is the one you're going to write today.
And are you finding that lockdown is conducive to this? Have you been writing lots during this sort of time at home?
Well, it's funny, you know, I've been talking to lots of people, just writers and ordinary people. One thing is that when this started, everybody imagined they'd be reading a lot. I think everybody imagined they'd have hours and hours of time and they'd be lounging around reading books and things. It doesn't seem to happen like that. But I've also found that a lot of my writer friends have said they found it quite difficult to write. And I think it was because when it started, people were confused and very anxious and were put on edge, and that sort of upsets your brain patterns a bit. I think as it's settled down and people have got more used to it, we're sort of returning to a strange kind of normality and making some little animated films with so I've got my sons here and they're quite good on tech, and I wanted to find out a bit of animation, so I've done a bit of that. I've made a radio program. I've done all sorts of things, but one thing I haven't really got on with properly is doing any book writing.
And you were on a call with royalty earlier today, is that right?
It was, yes. I had a Zoom chat with Duchess of Cornwall, Camilla Parker Bowles. It was me and the other judges on the Radio 2's 500 Words competition, which has been running for 10 years now.
Wow.
First of all with Chris Evans and now with Zoe Ball. I hope all the kids out there know about it. It's a fantastic competition. You simply have to write a story, 500 words or less, and over 100,000 people, stories are sent in every year. So they've had over 1 million stories since it started.
And the calibre is amazing.
Oh, they are. They're really, really good stories. And you know, we really look forward to the judging, where we have the final 50 stories, and we have the difficult task of choosing 6 best out of that, the gold, silver and bronze in 2 categories. And we all get together, normally meet up in a normal room, but obviously today it was Zoom. And I was a little bit embarrassed. You probably think my office looks really messy, but you should have seen it before I tidied it for the Duchess. But I bet
she was in an immaculate room.
Well, she was sitting in her castle somewhere in Scotland with this beautiful mantelpiece full of antiques and nicely arranged flowers, and it all looked very beautiful.
You want a writer to have a room that says creativity, not be in some sort of sparse, empty.
Yes, but you know, I mean, some writers do have very immaculate rooms and everything's organised, and they'll have all their stories broken down into cards that they'll stick on the wall and all the characters, and it'll be very organised. Others will just be a huge mess, which is like your brain. It's all those ideas spilling around, and there's bits here, and you could pick something from there and something from there and put it all together and sort of tidy it up in your mind, and that then becomes a finished story.
Is that a tip for any young budding writers listening? You can have messy bedrooms, everyone.
Yes.
It will help.
If your mum or your dad or whoever says, tidy your room, say, no, I'm training to be a writer.
Yeah, I'm a creative, exactly. Now, you've got a new book that's coming out, but it was supposed to be coming out in May, and annoyingly, it's been postponed.
We've got this awful coronavirus, and it's made us all have to stay in and work from home, which I was doing anyway, so it hasn't changed my life on that level. But everybody's lives have been changed somehow. My book was supposed to be out about now, but it's a book about a kid going on summer holiday to Italy. And none of us can go on holiday at the moment. B, Italy in people's minds was this sort of first place that got it badly in Europe. C, there's no mention of coronavirus in the book. The boy happily goes on holiday to Italy. But the most important thing is that the kids aren't at schools. And you don't want to put a book out for kids when they're not at school, because you want the kids to be talking about it and talking to each other, the teachers to be reading them bits, and it becomes something shared. And obviously, whoever can go to the bookshops and buy it for them. But when you don't have that, you can't publish books. And I've had 2 or 3 writer friends whose books have been put back by a whole year. Yes, I mean it's a mad world we're in. Best holiday ever. It's told from the point of view of a 12-year-old boy called Stan, who's very shy, and he ends up going on holiday with his best friend to Italy, although it's not really his best friend. He's a friend of his from school, who was meant to be taking another boy who was the most popular boy in school, but he broke his leg playing football. And so Stan was kind of like 5th choice on the list of possible people to go. So they're not even really that good friends. So Stan goes on holiday without his own family. He goes with this other family that he doesn't know, and a lot of adults, and he's thrown into this world. And he's very shy, he's a very self-conscious boy, which is what I was very much like at that age. And so it's about him learning how to deal with things. So by the end of the book, he has learned a lot, and he's become a lot braver, I think, yes. So it starts as the worst holiday ever, and it sort of ends up as the best holiday ever.
Spoiler alert, we don't need to read it now. No, we do. It sounds absolutely brilliant. And if you will permit me, I would love to read a bit of it to whet people's appetites. But it's actually available on pre-order at the moment. So if you like what you hear, gang, then make sure you get online and order The Worst Holiday Ever. Charlie, you have been hugely entertaining as ever. I mean, there's a million more questions I'd like to ask you. So,
well, have me back. I'll come back and talk to you again sometime.
Yeah, well, you've got loads of books under your belt. We can always read from some of those as well, including Young Bond. But in the meantime, I know you're really busy and you've got loads to do and royalty waiting on Zoom calls, etc. So I will bid you farewell. Thank you so much. And I hope you like how I read your book.
Yes, well, I'm looking forward to hearing it. And thank you so much for talking to us. It's been great fun. Cheers. Bye-bye, everyone.
Catch you soon. Not even out yet, an exclusive. Worst Holiday Ever by Charlie Higson. Chapter 1. What's the opposite of a bucket list? You know what I mean by a bucket list, right? It's a list of all the things you want to do before you die, which when you're only a 12-year-old boy could be quite a long list actually, as you haven't really done anything yet. But to tell you the truth, I don't want to do anything much. It's easier and less scary to stay at home in my room on my computer. So what would you call the opposite of a bucket list? A list of all the things you want to make sure you never, ever do. Ever. All the awful, terrible, horrible, embarrassing, dangerous, scary, dumb things you need to avoid. Like, I know I never want to do anything where you might have to use a parachute. I mean, why would anyone want to throw themselves out of an aeroplane? That's just stupid. And hot air ballooning. How is it possible to make something that is so really boring and really dangerous at the same time? Okay, let's be clear. I want to avoid going up in the air in the first place. Actually, it's not so much the going up that worries me, it's the coming down. What else? Anything where I might come across dangerous animals is right out, obviously. Swimming with whales? Nope. Going anywhere near sharks? No. Canoeing up the Amazon? No. The Amazon rainforest is full of snakes, spiders, piranhas, crocodiles, and those fish that swim up your willy if you have a pee in the water. Backpacking in Australia? Amazon forest is full of snakes, spiders, piranhas, crocodiles, and those fish that swim up your willy if you have a pee in the water. Backpacking in Australia? No, 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 no. Did you know that 21 of the world's 25 most poisonous snakes live there? And they have crocodiles and spiders the size of footballs and killer jellyfish. Plus, they have a massive hole in the ozone layer, so you basically shrivel up into a crisp and drop dead if you go outside. Australia is very far away, and as far as I'm concerned, it can stay there. What else? I definitely want to steer clear of octopuses and, well, maybe I should just show you my list, except I don't know what to call it. Not a bucket list. The only words I can think of to call my list are a bit rude, but... Oh yes, I know. Ducket. A ducket list. So here's my ducket list. 10 things to avoid at all costs. There's a law that says lists should always be 10 things. Actually, I think most of the things on my ducket list are things other people would probably put on their bucket lists. But I really hope I never have to do any of the following. Stan's ducket list. 1. Bungee jumping. 2. Anything where you have to use a parachute. 3. Dancing. 4. Dancing in public. 5. Going on Strictly Come Dancing. 6. Whitewater rafting. 7. Fire eating. 8. Alligator wrestling. 9. Kissing. 10. Going on holiday with people you don't know. 11. Octopuses. All right, sorry, it's not 10 things. I had to add number 11 in at the last minute. I panicked. I panic a lot. I'm panicking right now. Why? Because number 10 is happening. I'm going on holiday with people I don't know. This shouldn't be happening to me. It's an absolute disaster. I keep thinking about how on earth I got here. Here being the shopping maze of doom at Stansted Airport, completely lost at 4 o'clock in the morning. I wonder what I could have done differently. How I could have stopped this happening. All right, calm down, Stan. Maybe I'm being overdramatic. I'm not actually going on holiday with complete strangers. I'm going on holiday with Felix, who is my best friend. Okay, to tell you the truth, Felix is not exactly my best friend. I don't really have a best friend. I have 5 friends and Felix is one of them. They're all about equal on the friend scale, I suppose. Sometimes I like one of them better than the others. You know how it is. Every now and then I'll have a fight with one of them and then we aren't friends for a bit. But it doesn't usually last long and mostly we forget what the fight was about. Right now though, I'm having to pretend that Felix is my best friend because his mum and dad are taking me on holiday to Italy for 2 weeks. So when I get there, if anyone asks me who I am, I've got to say I'm Felix's best friend, Stan. Which will be a bit of a lie, to be honest. If I was forced to rank my friends in order, Felix would probably be number 5. I don't mean to be rude, but we're not actually that friendly. And if you'd asked Felix before if I was his best friend, he would have said no. Actually, what he'd have said would have been more like, "What? Are you mad? Stan? Huh? No way." But you see what happened is that Felix was meant to be going on holiday with his real best friend Archie, who is maybe my number 4 friend. Archie's really good at football and everybody wants to be his friend, even the girls. But Felix had to make a last-minute change of plan because 3 weeks ago Archie broke his leg playing football. Well, he wasn't playing at the time. He was celebrating scoring a goal and tried to do a sort of somersault. He landed funny and there was a loud snapping noise, like someone shooting a gun in a film. It was really horrible. His bone was sticking out of his leg. I felt a bit sick looking at it, although it was a little bit cool at the same time. I think Archie might not be able to play football for a while. I wonder if this will make a difference to how many people want to be his friend. Anyway, Archie's still on crutches, so I've taken his place on the holiday. And I know it wasn't even Felix's first choice of substitute. He asked a few other boys, but they were already going on holiday with their own families. I didn't have any plans to go on holiday with my family. We don't really go on holiday in the summer because Dad says it's too expensive and crowded everywhere. The travel companies really rip you off, he says. Every summer he fills up the plastic paddling pool in our tiny garden with a hose. They totally put their prices up in the school holidays. It's criminal. All the airlines and hotels and holiday farms charge twice what they usually do. So we normally have our family holiday. In the Easter break, we go to Wales. In case you don't know what Wales is, it's a country next to England where it rains all the time. We go to the same cottage every year. It belongs to my Uncle David. I think Uncle David rents it out in the summer, which is why we go at Easter. The cottage smells mouldy and it never gets warm. Last time we went, I recklessly decided to go for a swim in the sea and lost all feeling in my legs. So this is all a bit different for me. Before today, I'd only ever been on an aeroplane once before, when I was 10. Mum's dad, my granddad Johnny, died and left her some money in his will. She wanted to give us all a treat. We went to Spain for a week and Dad got the flu. All he said about the holiday was never again, even though Mum really enjoyed it. Me too. You could get sausage and chips, it was warm, and you didn't risk acting out the last scene from Titanic every time you went in the sea. Whenever we go to Wales and Dad's not around, Mum looks out at the rain and says, "Never again," and we both laugh. It's our little joke. That's what Mum calls it. To tell you the truth, I don't find the joke that funny anymore. So, as I say, we usually spend summer at home in London, but this summer is different because when Felix asked me if I wanted to go on holiday with him, I panicked and said yes. Oh God, what have I done? All I needed to do was to say no, and none of this would have happened. I wouldn't be lost in Stansted Airport in the middle of the night. Maybe you don't just need to avoid going on holiday with people you don't know. Maybe you need to avoid going on holiday altogether. I definitely have to make a new list. Reasons to not go on holiday. Want to know what those reasons are? Then pre-order the book to find out. Worst holiday ever. Well, that's about it for today, but a huge thanks to the awesome Charlie Higson. I will see you next time. For now, bye. Please subscribe and spread the word.